This is not an enemy that fights in pieces. Diary note attributed to a Japanese staff officer, Combined Fleet Headquarters, June 1944. At dawn on June 19, 1944, the sea east of Saipan was unnaturally calm. The Pacific lay flat and metallic, reflecting a pale sky as if nothing violent had ever crossed it. Then, just before 6:30, the horizon began to flicker, tiny black dots swelling into aircraft formations so dense they seemed stitched into the sky. Below them, the WWII erupted in white scars as naval gunfire walked steadily toward the beaches. For the Japanese generals watching from command bunkers and chart rooms, this was not merely an attack. It was something they had never fully prepared for, a single, synchronized machine of air, sea, and logistics moving with ruthless precision. For years, Japanese doctrine emphasized decisive fleet engagements and the fighting spirit of individual units. Battles were meant to be won through courage, timing, and the bold stroke of commanders. What unfolded in the Marianas Campaign shattered that worldview. By mid-1944, Admiral Raymond A. Spruance's Fifth Fleet and Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher's Task Force 58 had refined a method of warfare that left no seams to exploit. Carriers launched waves of F-6F Hellcats, SB-2C Helldivers, and TBF Avengers in tightly timed cycles. While one strike returned low on fuel, another was already climbing. Destroyers formed protective rings, radar operators tracking incoming threats long before pilots could see them. Amphibious forces rehearsed landings down to the minute, tide tables folded into waterproof maps carried by officers of the 2nd and 4th Marine Divisions. From the Japanese side, the scale felt unreal. On June 20, 1944, after 2 days of air battles that American pilots would later call the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa surveyed the damage. Over 300 Japanese aircraft were gone, many lost not in heroic dogfights, but because American radar-guided fighters intercepted them miles from their targets. Pilots returned reporting American planes appearing from nowhere, already positioned at altitude, already waiting. Japanese generals were not naive men. Many had studied Western navies. Some had even observed U.S. industrial capacity before the war. But coordination on this level, this seamless handoff between scouting planes, carrier decks, fire control officers, and amphibious commanders was something entirely different. A surviving staff report from Imperial General Headquarters, dated July 3, 1944, noted with restrained alarm that American operations displayed no discernible pauses. Attacks continued through nightfall. Damaged ships were shielded by smokescreens and destroyers, then gone by morning, repaired, refueled, and back in formation. For Japanese commanders accustomed to battles that ebbed and flowed, this unbroken pressure was psychologically exhausting. Nowhere was this more evident than at Leyte Gulf 4 months later. On October 24, 1944, Japanese forces launched a complex, desperate counterstroke, multiple fleets converging from different directions to smash the American invasion of the Philippines. On paper, it was elegant. In practice, it collided headfirst with American coordination. As Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force moved through the Sibuyan Sea, American carrier aircraft found them again and again. Waves arrived with clockwork regularity. Dive bombers screamed down through flak-thick air, torpedoes struck in disciplined patterns, and reconnaissance planes relayed updated positions in near real time. The battleship Musashi, pride of the Imperial Navy, absorbed hit after hit, over 17 bombs and 19 torpedoes, before finally capsizing at 1936. Japanese officers watched the sea swallow a symbol they had believed nearly invincible. What stunned them was not just the firepower, but the choreography. While Kurita fought for survival, American escort carriers off Samar coordinated desperately with destroyers, like USS Johnston and USS Hull, launching aircraft even when decks were slick with fuel and blood. Pilots took off without bombs, strafing simply to create confusion. Naval gunfire, airstrikes, and submarine pickets all fed into the same operational picture. There was no single dramatic blow, just relentless interlocking pressure. Japanese generals began to understand the deeper truth too late. The Americans were not fighting individual battles, they were running a system. This realization cut deeply into morale. Diaries from senior officers stationed on Iwo Jima in early 1945 speak of dread rather than defiance. On February 16th, 2 days before the landings, the island shook continuously under naval bombardment from battleships like USS New York and USS Nevada, guided by spotter planes circling overhead. When the shelling paused, it was not silence. It was the sound of engines, thousands of them, as aircraft took their place. General Tadamichi Koribayashi, a disciplined and perceptive commander, knew what was coming. He forbade banzai charges and ordered his men into tunnels, hoping to fracture American coordination by disappearing underground. Even then, Marine engineers adapted, calling in airstrikes to collapse entrances, coordinating flamethrowers with infantry advances, naval guns adjusting fire almost in real time. For Japanese generals observing from afar, this adaptability was perhaps the most unsettling element of all. Every tactic met a response. Every response was shared across branches. There was no confusion to exploit, no moment when air, sea, and ground fought separate wars. By April 1945, as Okinawa burned, one senior Japanese naval officer reportedly remarked that the Americans fought as if guided by a single mind. It was not meant as praise. It was an admission of strategic shock. In the end, coordinated air-sea operations did more than win battles. They crushed expectations. They dismantled assumptions built over decades. Japanese generals were not stunned because they faced bravery or strength. They had expected those. They were stunned because they faced an enemy that had turned war itself into an organized industrial rhythm, where courage mattered, but synchronization decided everything. And once that rhythm began, there was no way to stop it.